This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. So we're learning Sefer Zechariah. Zechariah is from the Trei Asar. We're in Parak Beis, Pasuk Yud. Parak Beis, Pasuk Yud. Hay, hay, alas, alas. Now that's the simple interpretation of the word hay. Hay means alas. It's the language of mourning. Woe. However, we're going to see Rashi learns differently. Venusu, and flee me'eretz tzafain, from the land of the north. Noam Hashem, says God. Ki ka'arba ruchos hashamayim, like the four winds of the heavens. Peirasti eschem, I have scattered you. Noam Hashem, says God. Says Rashi, Hay, hay, ein hay eloloshon hachraza. It does not mean alas, does not mean woe. It means declaration. In other words, hear ye, hear ye. Okay? Behazakas kibbutz. It's like, let's go, let's go. It's a gathering. V'chein targum yoinasan. Achlu lemad baraya. Hechrizu. Kama yireim min shamayim. Ichlu min shamaya. Okay? Where should they flee from? This is a call. This is a declaration of assembly of everyone to return to Israel and participate in the construction of the Beis HaMikdash. You look in the Radak, Lashon Kriya, Venusu Me'eretz Tzafan, the Radak says, this is addressed to those who remained in Bavel, who did not come up at first. Get out of there and come back to Yerushalayim and build, the Radak says, and build the bias. The time has come. Okay? I'm going to come back to this pasuk. Now, even though the pasuk doesn't say where this Eretz Tzafain is, it says, come flee from the land of the north. But we just saw the Radak identified that the people that this hachraza was addressed to was who? The Radak says it was addressed to the Eretz Bavel.
Now to the north or west?
Now that's a question. If I were to ask you, where is Bavel located relative to Eretz Yisrael?
Northeast. It's east.
Northeast, yeah. Northeast.
Is it? Well, one direction which is certain is predominantly it is east.
Yeah.
Like the Gemara says many times when it's talking about Eretz Yisrael, what? B'marava Amar. Is it north? Not really. Is Iraq really north of Israel? On the equator? Not too much. Lebanon is north. Syria is north. Turkey is north.
If you travel due east from Eretz Israel, you wouldn't get to Iraq. You have to go north.
I don't know.
East northeast.
Not really.
It's east northeast.
Yeah. East north, yes.
Yeah, but it is. But there's a north. There's a north component.
Very slightly. Very slightly. And it's quite difficult. Why in Tanakh Bavel is always referred to as the north? Now, again, the pasuk didn't say yet, but we're going to see in pasuk Yud Aleph, Hay, alas, another proclamation. Hay, ho, Tzion. That refers to those who were exiled from Tzion. Himolti. Now, where did those who were exiled from Tzion go? They went to Bavel. Himolti. Escape where your Golus is. Yosheves bas Bavel. So here we have it. The pasuk says explicitly, those who dwell in the daughter of Bavel, get out, come out.
Got one height. How come the people in the Tzafon got two heights?
So why is the Torah? Why is the Navi repeating it? And why one time says Radak?
What is bas Bavel as opposed to Bavel?
Okay. He says, Krushu machris l'tzion, himolti mi Bavel. Escape from Bavel. The Malbim says that now the gathering, the general gathering, it will not be a general gathering. Only those who dwell in Bavel will return to Tzion, like it says in Ezra Nehemiah. That because only people from Bavel returned, but the rest of the Goyla from the north, that Sancheirav exiled, and then Nebuchadnezzar exiled, they did not return to Eretz Yisrael. But these people that Sancheirav exiled and Nebuchadnezzar exiled, they did return, but not to Eretz Yisrael. They sort of traveled and scattered throughout the world. Now this is a very important idea. Why is Bavel called Me'eretz Tzafain? That would not be, if you were describing one direction that Bavel is relative to Eretz Yisrael, it would not be correct to say that it's north. It would be
Lebanon would be due north, right?
It's not really north at all. It's very slightly north. It's east. That's why in Shas, whenever it talks about Eretz Yisrael, it's always Marava Amri. So there's another indication to this. There's another time that Bavel is called the north. In the Haftarahs for the 3 weeks, it says Mitzafain Tipasach Hara. Right, Yirmiyah prophecies the evil will begin from the north. The evil will begin from the north. That's referring to which Galus? What is that referring to? It's referring to Galus Bavel. Why would Bavel be called the north? Okay, so this is the kasha of, you should know this. You pull this out on anybody, they'll be very impressed. This is the kasha of Rabbi Yaakov Emden in the back of the Gemara Masechta Gittin on Daf Vav. You ready for this? The Gemara in Gittin says, "V'habavel l'tzvayna de'eretz Yisrael." The Gemara in Gittin says Bavel is north of Israel. U'da'amar hacha l'tzvayna nami mishum disalka le'ela mehasam l'tzvayna eretz Yisrael v'chein dinachtin l'tatoi mitzvayna de'eretz Yisrael ka'azli lahasam chashiv leitzafayna. What does that mean? Okay, you ready for the big secret? If you were to travel from Israel to Iraq, and you would travel due east, you would have to travel through 2 deserts.
What?
Deserts. The Arabian desert, and other deserts as well. And even today it would be dangerous to travel that way.
Syria and Iraq, there's a desert between Syria and Iraq. There's a big desert.
One of them is the Arabian desert, maybe the Syrian desert. And if nowadays it's a dangerous travail, you could imagine in the ancient times it would have been deadly to travel that way. To get from Iraq to Israel, the travel route is from Iraq you go north, you go west, and then you go south. And if you want to get from Israel to Iraq, you go north, you go east, and you go south. So if the Navi is telling you that the Babylonians are coming, from what direction are they coming? They're coming from the north. It's not a matter of location, a matter of the way that they would travel. That's why Bavel is called the north, not because it is north, that's because the only way to get from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael is north, says Rabbi Yaakov Emden.
You have to go through Lebanon and Turkey. So.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Okay? Now let's examine this pasuk. Ki ke'arba ruchais hashamayim peirasti eschem no'am Hashem. Literally, just like the 4 winds of the heavens, I scattered you. Or another way to read it is, I'll read it like this: Ki ke'arba ruchais hashamayim, to the 4 ends of the world, peirasti eschem, I scattered you. What is this pasuk saying? So we have to look in the Gemara in Tainus. Is there a Tainus here? The Gemara says in the Masechta Tainus, in the beginning of the Masechta, Gemara says, the Gemara wants to know the meaning of this pasuk in Zechariah. And the Gemara asks, Adaf Gimel Amud Beis, you ready? So Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, Ka'arba ruchais hashamayim peirasti eschem nomasha. My ka'amar lahu. What's the Navi saying? Ileima haki kamar. If it means to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Hashem telling Klal Yisrael Dibedar Tinchu Be'arba Ruchi D'Alma. Maybe the Navi means that Ki'arba Ruchas Hashem B'Raz Yisrael, I scattered you to the four ends of the world. Maybe it means I scattered you to the four ends of the world. So the Gemara asks, that can't be Pshan the Pasuk. Because Ihachi, if so, Ki'arba, like the four, Bi'arba miboile, into the four. It should say, Bi'arba ruches hashamayim pirasi eschem, I scattered you to the four ends of the world. Elahachi kamra, this is what it means to say. Kishem she'yafshir la'olam b'loi ruchais. Just like the world cannot exist without wind, if there would be no wind, people would die. You exhale carbon dioxide, okay, the problem is if you re-breathe in that carbon dioxide, you're dead. So you need the wind to constantly bring in new oxygen. The world needs wind. You need the wind to cause things to grow, to cause seeds to move. So too, Kach yavshir la'olam b'lo Yisrael. So too, the world cannot exist without the Jews. So you read the pasuk like this: Ki ka'arba ruches hashamayim. Just like the four winds which are needed for the world. But wait a second, it doesn't say, so too I created Klal Yisrael. It says, I scattered you. So how do you read the pasuk according to this? Like the four winds of the world, just like the world cannot exist without the winds, I scattered you? I scattered you?
Like the four winds. Just like the...
No, but the Gemara is saying it means just like the world cannot exist without the four winds, so too the world cannot exist without Klal Yisrael. Well, you don't have the second... you don't have... The pasuk doesn't say that I scatter. The pasuk doesn't say that I created Klal Yisrael. In other words, if the meaning of the pasuk is just like the world can't exist without the winds, the world can't exist without Klal Yisrael, it doesn't say anything about Klal Yisrael here. So that's the problem over here. All it says is that I scattered you.
Scattered like the four winds, right?
Yeah, but that's how the Gemara says the pasuk is trying to teach me something else. So Rashi addresses this problem, and Rashi Masechta Taina says like this. Just like the world cannot exist without the winds, Rashi says without wind the world would be too hot. You need fans. You can't sit in a room without air coming in. Right?
Sometimes the world gets too hot because of the wind.
Right? So too, so Rashi says the world needs the winds. Meiroiv hevel v'chamimus. So too the world cannot exist without Klal Yisrael. And therefore, says Rashi, since the world cannot exist without Klal Yisrael, therefore Hashem had to scatter Klal Yisrael.
But what, he didn't scatter them because after Yitzism they were not so strong. When they were Yitzism strong, they weren't scattered.
And so one second. According to Rashi, the pasuk is saying, just like the world can't exist without the wind, the world can't exist without Klal Yisrael, and therefore Hashem scattered Klal Yisrael. What does one thing have to do with the other? Because the world can't exist without Klal Yisrael, Hashem had to scatter us? What does our scattering have to do with the fact that the world can't exist without us? Plus, Rashi adds another pasuk. Rashi adds the pasuk in Yirmiyah, because the pasuk says, "Imloi brisi yomam v'layla chuka shamayim v'aretz lo samti," that somehow the world can't exist without Klal Yisrael, and then Rashi adds, the world can't exist without Torah. So Hashem had to scatter us.
Oh, but if Bnei Israel are light unto the nation. So
no, it's not what Rashi says. Rashi doesn't say
we're explain.
Yeah.
In order to be a light to all the nations, you have to be amongst the nations.
That's very nice. Rashi doesn't say that Hashem scattered us to be a light. Rashi says, because he quotes the pasuk in Yirmiyah, that the world can't exist without Torah. So, okay, we have two explanations here. One is, I'm going to bring to your attention from a relatively new sefer. I don't think we ever quoted it over here. We did not. The name of the sefer is Igeres LeBen Torah, letters to a letter to a Ben Torah, and this is from Hagoyin Haggadah Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, the son of Rabbi Vadia Yosef, where he writes the Derech Halimud, the proper way to learn, and he happens to say something which is which was always the way I learned Rashi. He's not saying Pshat in Rashi, but this is one way to learn Rashi, and then we're going to learn what I think Rashi is saying. And that is, says Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, let's talk about the shape of the world. Is the world flat or is the world round? So we all know today the world is round, and we think that they used to think the world was flat. Well, maybe that's what they used to think, but the Yushalmi in Avodah Zarah and Tosfos in Avodah Zarah Daf Mem Aleph tells us that the world is round. And in fact, Alexander the Great, he went to the top of the world, which that's a little bit of a problem when you're in the top of the world. Everywhere in the world is the top of the world if the world is round. And he saw the whole world below him like a ball. Like if you look at the horizon, you see the descent. Okay? Fine. That's why, on the fifth line, he's on the paragraph that begins V'hinei, Mitam ze b'makrein echad yom. That's why here in America, in one place it's day, Uvaisa Shama Mishmakam Acher Laila, and in Hong Kong it's night. And the Baal Hamor writes at the end of the first paragraph of Rosh Hashanah that the day and the night are not the same anywhere in the world. In one place it's day, in another place it's night. And the Zohar says the same thing, and the Radbaz says the same thing. And therefore he writes in brackets that since we know the world stands on Torah, so about 7 lines from the end, Umitam zeh bi'alpayim shenois Torah, in the 2,000 years of Torah. Now the 2,000 years of Torah began in the year that Avram Avinu became 52 years old. And it lasted the year 2000. And it lasted till the year 4000. Well, during those years, those were the years that God scattered us all over the world. Why? Because so that when they go to sleep in Eretz Yisrael and they finish learning, in America, in America they're still learning Torah. And when they go to sleep in America, then they're learning Torah in Israel. In other words like this. The world stands on Torah. So the world stands on Torah. The problem is that might be good for the first couple of years we're in Eretz Yisrael and people learn Torah day and night. But when the generations decline and people only learn Torah during the day, the Rebbe Shalom had to scatter us to all ends of the world and create time zones. Why? So that there will always be the learning of Torah somewhere in the world.
And after the year 4000?
It remained that way. Now Rashi could mean this very pshat. The pasuk is saying, Ki ka'arba ruchos hashamayim, the same way the world cannot be without wind, so too the world can't be without Klal Yisrael. Why? Because the world needs Torah. And therefore, Peirasti eschem. Therefore, Hashem had to scatter us. If the world cannot exist without Torah, Hashem had to scatter us to all ends of the world, so that there is always Torah being learned at all hours of the day. Okay? So that is one pshat in Rashi. Another pshat is like this. A little bit different, a little bit of a nuance, and that is not that it's definitely true that if there be a moment that somebody's not learning Torah, the world would cease to exist. However, there's another aspect to it, and that is for the world to exist, every part of the world has to have people in that part of the world learning Torah. So therefore, Hashem had to scatter Jews to all parts of the world. In other words, it's not just a time thing, it's also a matter of location. The same way the world can't exist without the wind, and if you had one section of the world that would be without wind, that section would be completely useless. So too, the world can't exist without Klal Yisrael, and therefore every part of the world has to have some Jews in it. Okay.
Let me just ask you a question. You said before that the Jews have to be scattered in the world. So the first place where they weren't scattered was because, you said, because they learned Torah, Yom V'Layla, so they didn't have to be scattered.
Right,
okay. That's
right. Yeah. Okay. So the Navi continues. And Pasuk Yud Beis. Ki Chaya Amar Hashem Tzvakos. So says Hashem, Master of Hosts. Achar Kavod, after honor, Shilachani, He sent me, El Hagayim, to the nations, Hashoylu Lemeschem, that to spoil you, Ki Hanogeya Bochem, whoever touches you, noigea bevavas einai. It's like he touches the pupil of his eye. What does this mean? What does it mean after honor, God sent me to the nations that despoil you? Because those who touch you, touch the pupil of his eye. Who's his? Whose eye is this referring to? So, says Rashi, Achar kavod. Achar kvoidchem, after your honor. What honor is this referring to? Says the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, Arei kidenan amar Hashem tzvos basar yikar da'amir la'isay aleichem. This refers to the honor that Ribbono Shel Olam mentioned earlier. What honor did he mention earlier? Look in the Radak. Achar hakavod shevtiach eschem, after the honor that he promised you. Kamay shekasav b'nevuah lamala, like he wrote in the prophecy above. Shetachlisa u'lechavod eya b'seicha. Right? Who remembers? Last week we learned pasuk tes. The Ribbono Shel Olam says, "I will surround Yerushalayim be'esh." And then the Ribbono Shel Olam says, "Ulechavod eya b'seicha." I'll be an honor in it. Well, after I honor Jerusalem, then Hashem's going to send Zechariah to prophecy that everyone needs to come back. And Zechariah is going to prophesy about the downfall of all the nations that plundered us. Achar zeh shalachani, says Radak, el hagoy hashoy lemeschem ki ein dai lokel yizach b'toiva sheisham lechem tmuras hara. The Ribbono Shel Olam is not satisfied. Well, you had many years of suffering, so I'll give you years of goodness. But rather, Hashem is not satisfied with that. In other words, when the ultimate redemption comes, Ribbono Shel Olam is not going to say, well, you Jews suffered for 2,000 years, so now you'll have 2,000 years of success. No. Hashem will not rest until we are able to take revenge against the Goyim. And that will be part of our reward. So, ki hanoigea b'chem, anyone who touches you, ki noigea b'vavas einai. It's like you touch the pupil of his eye. What does this mean? Says Radak, anyone who touches you will not escape empty-handed. The same way, if somebody were to strike their pupil, then they're hurting themselves. Says Ribbono Shel Olam, anyone who touches you, it's like they touch the pupil of their own eye, and they're going to suffer. I'm not just going to reward you; those nations are going to suffer. The Mincha Shai, however, and the Abar Benel, take a look and the Mitzudos, they learn a little different. They learn that Bevavas Einai is a reference to the Ribbono Shel Olam's eye. He says, anyone who messes with you, they're messing with me, says Ribbono Shel Olam. And therefore I am going to get back at them.
So why the eye specifically as opposed to a different part of the body?
Because, well, if it's referring to... That's the most sensitive part of the body. In other words, Ribbono Shel Olam takes it personally. There's no part of the body which is more sensitive than the pupil of the eye. Even if it just scratched slightly, it's very damaging. So Ribbono Shel Olam is saying that I hold the Jewish people so dear that you can't mess with them, don't look at them bad. Ki hineni meinef es yadi alehem, for behold, I will wave my hand against them. V'hayu shalal la'avdehem, and they will become spoils to those who serve them, meaning to Klal Yisrael. Says Rashi, "V'hayu shalal avdeim liYisrael shehem ata avadim lahem." These goyim are going to become our servants. V'yidatem, and you'll know ki Hashem tzivakos, that God, Master of Hosts, shalachani, has sent me. So this is the prophecy. Now, according to the Alshich, this is a prophecy that was supposed to happen very soon. It wasn't a prophecy that was going to happen in the end of days. It was a prophecy that was going to happen very soon. And the purpose of it was so that if the Jews would see the fulfillment of that prophecy, it would strengthen their hearts to have emunah in the prophecy of the end of days. And others say, no, this is all a matter of the prophecy at the end of days. So Rabbi say, we just saw in the Pasuk Yud, that the Rebbe Shalom is saying that the same way the world can't exist without the winds, the world cannot exist without Klal Yisrael, which Rashi explained means the world cannot exist without the Torah of Klal Yisrael. So I just want to share with you, we saw Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef's pshat in that idea, the concept of time zones. I want to share with you one more item from this Sefer, the Igeres L'ben Torah. We're going to start with Pasuk, with page Yud. Take a look at that. So he brings down over here, this is again a Sefer that talks about the Chashivos of Torah. He brings down a very important idea on a well-known Gemara. The Gemara is in Yuma, Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. The Gemara says that La'asilavai, the poor man, the wealthy man, they all come to be judged. And Hashem turns to the poor man, and Hashem says, why weren't you learning Torah? So the poor man, what do you want from me? I was so poor, I was involved in making parnasa. So they said, were you more poor than Hillel? And the Gemara says about Hillel that he was a wood chopper, and he made terrific a day, one terrific a day. And he used half of it to support his family, and the other half he paid membership. Right? So you see from here, if you want to learn, you got to pay membership. Right? That's what the Gemara says. Even Hillel did not.
Half your income.
What?
Half your income.
Half your income. Okay. So that's a problem. Half your income. Why? Because the Gemara says in Ksubis, Hiskinu be'usha, they made a takana in Usha, Hamavazbez, one who gives money to tzedakah, al yevazbez yoiser mechaydesh, is not allowed to give more than a fifth. So how could Hillel give away half of his income to tzedakah? But the halacha is you're not allowed to give away more than a fifth. It's an avera. It's a takana. One of the averas that most people don't have to worry about, right? But when you come to Shemaim, have a list of things you know for sure you kept. Takana susha, I'm very good at that takana. Yeah. So the question is, the Chafetz Chaim wrote a sefer on Kodshim called Likutei Halachos. And in Likutei Halachos, the Chafetz Chaim asks, how is Hillel allowed to give away half his money? It says, to which the Chafetz Chaim says, the takana of not giving away more than a fifth is when you're giving money to tzedakah. But if it's a matter of learning for yourself, that's your life. That's your entire eternity is dependent on your learning. It's the Torah is kihem chayinu v'archimenu. Imagine someone his life was in danger, and the only way to extricate himself is if you have to pay 25% of his income. We say, you're not allowed to do it to save your life. They made a takana and usha. You can't give away more than a fifth of your money. Of course not. So says the Chafetz Chaim, when it's a matter of your own success in learning, there's no shiur. If this is what you need to do to hear a divrei Elokim Chaim, then you got to pay. But you should know, in the Sefer Avas Chesed, Chafetz Chaim says, in general, this shiur that you can't give more than a fifth is only regular tzedakah, but not for Talmud Torah. To support a yeshiva or to support Talmud Torah, there's no shiur of tzedakah. What's the reason? The reason is because when you support Torah, you get part of the schar. It's like you become a business partner, and therefore Chazal never limited that. Okay, but that's not what I'm here to bring to your attention. Because the Gemara continues that one day Hillel could not find a job chopping wood. Yeah? And so what happened? No tuition, no entrance. You can't come in. But he's a Gadol Hadar. Good for him.
Where's the lesson in that? You don't let the Gadol Hadar in because he couldn't pay his half a tropek or whatever they called it?
Who says he was the Gadol Hadar?
He was probably no slouch.
Yeah, I mean, they knew who they were dealing with.
Yeah.
But I don't know, who says that at that time he was the Gadol Hadar, or he...
Okay, I'm sure he was a big man. Yeah.
He wasn't even a VIP, he was a pastor bocher.
He continued chopping wood, Anyway, he was already Hillel Hazaken, so he wasn't Hillel Hazaken. Anyway,
no, because
he went up and he's hanging by the skylight. Right? And the Gemara says that it was Tkufas Teves, it was the middle of the winter, and snow came down on him from the heavens. And in the morning, Shmaya Vavtalion are inside, and they see what looks like a snowman's imprint on the skylight, and they go up there, and they found 3 amos of snow on top of him. According to the Chazon Ish, that's 6 feet of snow. Right? In Yana Diyama. So they needed to rescue Hillel from under the snow. They called, the Israeli team to come get him out, and it says they gave him different, they washed him, and they anointed him, and they put him against the fire, and they said he's in such sakon, he could be Machal Shabbos to save him. So Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef has the following question. How was Hillel allowed to endanger his life to learn Torah? It's not one of the cardinal 3 things that you have to give up your life. Right? It's not. In fact, the Gemara says in Bava Kama, on Daf Samach Amud Aleph, that someone who risks his life to learn Torah, you don't say over Torah in his name. It's an Avera. So, I mean, when those snowflakes, when there was a foot of snow on his head, maybe that's a Hillel, maybe it's time to go home.
But Hillel didn't even realize it. Maybe that's what you have to say. He was so absorbed in the Torah that he didn't even know that.
When there were 3 feet of snow on his head,
it insulated him.
No.
He was
an insulator.
They said he was deathly ill. They could be Machal Shabbos.
He's probably unconscious already.
Yes, so you have to say.
He was so absorbed in it that he was oblivious what's going around.
Oh, you noticed, I banged. Right? Usually when you bang on the table, people notice. What if I pour this cup of water on your head? No, I don't feel it. I'm so orangutan in the learning. Do you know anyone like that?
Snow is a lot more gentle.
I have a question. Do you know anyone? All I'll do is take a little water and spritz them in the face. Do you know anyone who would be so involved in their learning? So you're telling me, Hillel, not only did he not realize there was an inch of snow on his head, he didn't realize there was a foot of snow on the head. He didn't realize there were 2. He didn't realize there was snow from here up to something, and he was so involved in his learning. Do you know someone, if I go like that to them, in the middle of learning, they wouldn't go like that?
But that's why he was Hillel.
I don't know. I want to know. Do you know? Could you even think of anyone you ever met who would be so orangutan, where I would just go like that to their nose and they wouldn't feel it? But you have to say, look at the tremendous, like you're saying. Hillel Hazaken these Tanoim were on levels of absorption and learning that we cannot even imagine. I mean,
yet they didn't let him in. They knew, and Shmaya and Atalion saw it, and listen, this is the administration of the yeshiva, right? Shmaya and Atalion. Does the Gemara say that they castigated the people at the door who didn't let him in?
Look, Rabbi said,
give him a lifetime pass.
But what I'm saying.
So, Rabbi, so you see from here.
Maybe that's where some of the administrators of the yeshivas today, when it comes to tuition and how they handle the people, they should take a lesson from what happened with Hillel.
That's the. So you see from here, tremendous absorption. The tremendous absorption and learning of the great Tana Hillel. He was Mekayim, what it says, B'havasa Tishke Tamid. In the tremendous love of Torah, he was like Shoigeh, like he completely absorbed. So he brings down a story over here. He talks about, even in the last generation, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank was learned B'chavrusa with Rabbi Chiel Michal Tikachinsky. And they're learning Masechta Yevamos. And when they got up to Peizayin Amud Beis, which is Parsha Isha Rabbah, which begins to talk about the laws of Iguna and the Dinei Yibam Chalisa are over, so Tzvi Pesach Frank had a deal that whatever they learn, they have to review 90 times. So every parak of Shas, they would learn together 90 times. Try learning something twice, 3 times. These 2 Gedolim, they learned they had a deal. They learned every Gemara Shittos 90 times. So now they're up to, they have a dilemma. Because they got up to Daf Peizayin, which is really still part of the Masechta, but it's a new Inyan. Rabbi Chiel Michal Rabbi says, you know what? I need to chazer it 30 more times, I feel. And Rabbi Chiel Michal said, no, I can't. So Rabbi Chiel Michal went weiter, and he learned the rest of the Masechta 90 times. And Tzvi Pesach Frank chazered the first 80 so blot another 30 times. And then, they finally got back together again. This was their policy. They learned everything in Shas At least 90 times. Now, could you imagine being on a level where you learn something 90 times and you say, I feel I need another 30. Like, to be able to estimate what level your knowledge is on and how many more times. I think most people feel if they learn something twice, they're already showing the Gadol Hadar on that daf, right? And they learned, that's how they knew every single Tosfos and Shas Baal Peh. Talking less than 100 years ago. Right? So these are their level of absorption in Torah was on a completely different level. And this is what the Navi is telling us, that the Rebbeinu Shalom knows that the world stands on Limud HaTorah, and Hashem scattered us to the four ends of the earth so that all hours of the day and all locations of the world there's always Limud HaTorah. Rabbi, have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.